Like many people, as a kid I didn't have just one favourite superhero. Depending on what comic I was reading, game I was playing, or show/movie I was watching, the characters that earned the title of favourite in my eyes would always change. Years later, that's still mostly true. I don't have one favourite character, I have many, but only one has stayed my favourite from then to now in spite of all the years, and that character is Spider-Man. Alright, I'm gonna ask you a really strange question now. Do you like Spider-Man? If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say the answer to that question is yes. It's weird to think about, but I don't think anyone actually hates Spider-Man.
They love me.
I know people who hate Batman, I know people who hate Iron Man or Wolverine or Superman or Captain America, but out of all the most popular superheroes to exist, Spider-Man seems to be completely devoid of haters. People either just plain like Spider-Man, or they love him. I'm no exception. I've been a huge Spider-Man fan for as long as I can remember. Hell, I've been dressing up as Spider-Man for Halloween since I was 7 years old. Spidey is an international phenomenon and collectively the most popular superhero on the planet. But why is that? The simple answer is that he's a scrappy underdog from humble beginnings with a heart of gold, sense of humour and awesome power set coupled with an amazing supporting cast and rogues gallery that can rival Batman's. That's a little bit too simplistic for my taste, so what is the complex answer? Well, that's exactly what I want to talk about. In this here ramble, I'm going to take a swing at deconstructing the webhead and figuring out why we love the web-slinging, quip-flinging, spectacular Spider-Man so much. Let's get started. When it comes to writing a character, sometimes relatability is important. It can help an audience empathize with characters that are completely rooted in fiction and out of this world and ease the strain of suspending disbelief. When you think about it, on paper, Spider-Man's a pretty out there concept. A teenager gets bitten by a radioactive spider and obtains arachnid-based superpowers, which also includes the knowledge to develop his own webbing so that he can swing around New York and fight guys in animal costumes. Not exactly the most straightforward premise, is it? But, in spite of all of that, Spider-Man is perhaps one of the most relatable superheroes in comics. And that's because of one reason: the person behind the mask. Peter Parker is the epitome of the everyman, both inside and out of the suit. I know that's a bit of a strange sentence given the fact he's a gorgeous superhuman with a laundry list of relationships, but in comparison to the rest of the A-listers superhero community, he's middle grade in pretty much everything. Spider-Man is a literal jack of all trades. He has strength, he has speed, he has smarts, but all of them are set to about 6 out of 10. He's strong, really strong, but he's not even the strongest street level hero, let alone the strongest Avenger. He's smart, really smart, but he's not the kind of super scientist you would call if you needed to fix a hole in reality. Hell, he's never actually cracked the top 10. All of Peter's powers and skills are above average, but not so much so that he's an overpowered beast that can solve any problem. When he struggles, he actually struggles. Even though he pulls his punches, he has a lot of enemies that are smarter and stronger than him. So whether it be a fight or a scientific problem, he actually has to put in effort to achieve results. Then there's the secret identity side of his everymanness. The Parker luck. Because holy crap does life hate Peter. It's a consequence of being in a serialized comic heavily inspired by soap operas, but Pete just can't catch a break when it comes to friends, family and relationships. If you're a friend or family member, you're either dead, secretly a supervillain, or have a dark, mysterious past. If you're his girlfriend, you're either dead, secretly a supervillain, or emotionally tormented by comic book bullshit like the devil erasing your marriage or a creepy old man wearing the body of a dead one to trick you into dating him. And sometimes it's all of the above. But Peter's bad luck doesn't just extend to those around him, he is its biggest victim. From small scale stuff like suffering the indignity of having the Human Torch as a roommate, to big personal tragedies like the loss of Uncle Ben because of his own indifference. But that's the thing about the Parker luck. In the end, it's mostly Peter's fault. Mostly. See, the most relatable thing about Peter Parker is that he can't have it all. He has to juggle every single aspect of his life, and every so often he slips and fails to catch one. Whether it's because he's overextended himself or let his emotions get the best of him, the cause of most of his non-supervillain problems are usually himself. But that's why we love him. He screws up, he makes mistakes, he's mortal just like the rest of us, and he shows us that that's okay. Because if someone like Spider-Man can struggle, then there's no shame in the rest of us having a hard time. Both inside and out of comics, Spider-Man has been around for a long, long time. For almost 60 years, he's been a part of the childhoods of multiple generations. Since he was 15, he's been a superhero in the Marvel Universe. We've watched him grow and change, not just in ink, but on screens big and small across dozens of iterations, and through it all, there's been one constant, one lesson.
With great power comes great responsibility.
That is the ethos of Spider-Man. It's also what makes him a joy to enjoy. Everything about Spider-Man is a lesson, and yet it doesn't feel like a lecture. I mentioned before that Spider-Man screws up, that he makes mistakes, and boy does he pay for them. His very first led to the death of Uncle Ben. He let the robber that would eventually go on to kill him get away, all out of petty disinterest. Point being that Peter's actions always have consequences, but he always learns from them and does everything in his power to make sure he doesn't repeat them. As human beings, we all screw up once in a while, but we have the responsibility to learn from those screw-ups and live with the consequences. And Peter doesn't just keep those lessons to himself. He has the empathy and understanding to constantly be making sure nobody follows in his footsteps when it comes to his mistakes. It's not just personal responsibility he believes in, but collective. That's why he's such a great community hero. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man cares about the neighborhood, not just himself, not just the latest supervillain he's punching, but everyone. Now Spider-Man is by no means a leader, and he never has been. Even though he has the experience and the respect of most superheroes, he has never led the Avengers. Why? Because he's a teacher. He's not someone who gives speeches or commands armies. He's someone who helps you become the person you were always meant to be. He's not a symbol that inspires a nation, but a role model that motivates an individual. That's why out of all the jobs Peter has had in his life, his one true calling will always be educator. Being a superhero is Spider-Man's destiny, but teaching students, both normal and superpowered, is Peter Parker's. And if Marvel editorial will ever stop regressing the character with every writer switch, maybe we'll see him in that position again. And maybe we'll even see him in the natural progression from that role, and we'll get Peter the father back too. What more do I have to say? If you're watching this video, you're most likely a fan of Spider-Man. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, then you're a fan of Into the Spider-Verse. And if you're a fan of Into the Spider-Verse, you know exactly what I mean by anyone can wear the mask. The way I see it is like this. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But Spider-Man is not Peter Parker. Outside of the comics, Spider-Man is an idea, more so than any other superhero. He represents the best of us, the best that we can be in spite of our flaws and shortcomings. Truth is, everybody dreams of being Spider-Man, and the best part about that is that anybody can be. Spider-Man can be Miles Morales, Spider-Man can be Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man can be Ben Reilly, Spider-Man can be Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man can be Anya Corazon, Spider-Man can be Cindy Moon, Spider-Man can be you. That's why in the 58 years that the character has existed, we've seen dozens and dozens of comics, movies, TV shows, video games, novels, and everything in between about Spider-Man. And after the home run that was No Way Home and Across the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2 on the horizon, the future for the old webhead looks brighter than ever. So, in summation, Spider-Man is you. You are Spider-Man. And that is why we love him. Because Spider-Man can be anyone.
You know one of the greatest things about Spider-Man's outfit, his costume?
What?
He is completely covered. So any kid could imagine he's Spider-Man because no color of the skin shows. He could be black under that, he could be red, he could be yellow, he could belong to any race. And that wasn't done purposely, it was done accidentally. But I think it was the best thing we did, making him so that he could be anybody under that costume.
Hey there, still here? Well, thanks for checking out my video. If you liked it, I've got a lot more. Most of them are just me rambling about the things that I like. But hey, if you're into that, take a look. And if you're really into that, feel free to subscribe.